Hi, I'm Yarlin,
And I'm Katie.
and this is Fae and Fables. We are back to discuss Dragon's Bride by Katee Roberts,
Mm.
and this book was very interesting.
Yes. Full disclosure, I just went to Yarland and I was like, girl, can we do this? Please. I had recently bought the book, like a actual physical copy of the book, and it was so small. And I was like, oh, we're doing dragons.
Right.
And Yarland very graciously was like, yes, we can do Dragon's Bride. So
Yeah, I was not familiar with Katee Roberts, but I really enjoyed this book. Some of the disclaimers for us to mention is this book does have themes of domestic violence, abuse, adult language, sexual topics such as kink, pain. So keep those things in mind if you pick up this book. And now let's kind of get into our ratings. I would love
yes.
for you to go first.
Okay. So because I've read a lot of Katee Robert before, I there's a certain mind space that I go into when I'm reading Katee Robert because, and she says this all the time, like if you follow her social media, she says, there's kind of two things you can expect from my books. One, kinky stuff. Two, happy endings. Like she literally is like, I don't, and I think she uses she, her pronouns. But so if I'm mispronouncing her, I apologies about that ahead of time. But um I she's very clear that like we're
Mm,
here for the vibes.
yeah,
We're here to hear sexy stuff, and then it's going to end in a good, happy way.
I love
And
that.
it honestly
Yeah.
so comforting to me, especially when so many of the books that we read are like so intense.
Yep.
There's always a cliffhanger. Somebody's always suffering. Like it's like
For sure.
there's very little like emotional break in a lot of the books that we read.
Yeah.
And so Katee Robert she has my heart. And like,
Yeah.
anyway. So when I walk into these books, I walk in with like a very specific mind frame that like I'm not reading this like I am reading When the Moon Hatched or other longer, more like epic fantasy type
Right.
books.
Yeah.
I'm going in knowing that like this is going to be kinky and then I'm going to be happy at the end.
Yeah.
And so going into this book, it was a little bit shorter than I've read of her other books. My
Okay.
Most of my knowledge of her work comes from the Neon God series, which I've read every single book that's out. I am waiting patiently for the next. I
Oh,
think it's called
okay.
Sweet Obsession. Um,
Ooh.
Waiting very patiently for that to come out. And so when I went into this, I rated it just like pure enjoyment. Like I'm here for the vibes. I didn't rate it like with like literary critiques and like
Right.
I took a very simple approach. What was my vibe? How did I feel? I gave it 4 stars because I just had a good time
That's
throughout.
true. Yeah.
It lost a star for me because there were some mental health reasons why it lost a star, which we'll get into in the therapy mind part. But also it was just a little short. Like it was just a little short for my liking. I would have liked it to be a little bit longer. And I had fun. And then Chili's, I don't know how you would not give it 5 stars, like,
Yeah.
or 5 chilies, excuse me. I, like it's chili peppers to the max, which is why we go to Katee Robert.
Yeah.
We go to Katee Robert. We're like, hey, can you please? And she delivers.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 4 stars, 5 chilies. What about you?
Okay, I gave it a 3 star. I think because I would have liked a little bit more of a plot and just
Okay.
having kind of longer content.
Mm.
But I was really happy throughout. I was like, wow. I think it was very surprising, like how simple it was and just like a happily ever after. I really love that because I feel like I haven't read something that is like that in like
Mm.
a one sitting book. You get everything. But yeah, I think I did want a little bit more, maybe some stuff going on.
Yeah, like just like a little bit more tension. Like
Right,
I
right.
could have stood for a little bit more tension than there was. Not a lot. Like again, I don't go to these books to like
Exactly.
have
Yeah.
my heart ripped to shreds.
Mhm.
And it was just a little too easy. Like it was
Right.
just, I don't know.
I think I would have wanted a little bit more of like that building up of the slow burn, but it is
Mm.
a short book, so you can only have so much of that. And I gave it 5 chili peppers because of course.
Because of all of the reasons we're going to talk. You almost like with Katee Robert, can't like you can't talk about Katee Robert
Yeah.
without talking about kinky stuff. Like it's a main component of the book. And
Yeah.
so she delivers with the chilies.
Yeah, so if you want to pick up this book and kind of get more of a understanding of what we're talking about today, go ahead and read it at your own read at your own risk and reminding yourself of the disclaimers, but it is a really great fun time. And I love that you suggested this book because like you mentioned earlier, it was a palate cleanser.
Yeah.
It was like something quick and simple to read in between all these like intense series that we read.
Mm.
So I thought that was really cool.
And I think that's so if you look at our Instagram when we put out sort of our initial list of books, at the end was the book Dragonfall.
Yes.
And as we went through these books, to be honest with you, like some of them, we had come in already having read some of the Fourth Wing series. Like
Uh-huh.
there was some of this we had already read, but for the Dragon series books, we also were actively reading
Yep.
sort of as we were producing these episodes. And I think after after we finished When the Moon Hatched,
Yep.
right? It was just a series of very intense. It was just like intense.
Yep. Yeah.
And I think so we switched Dragonfall for Dragon's Bride. I think because we just needed like some levity. Like we just I like I think this bucks a lot of the tropes for fantasy books is like you sort of get in these patterns of like emotional damage in all these fantasy books that we're reading.
Yeah.
And this is such a break from so much of that. And I think that's why Katee Robert like fits this very unique space in literature. It's like she's doing things that many other people aren't in the name of like emotional struggle. And she's like, no, like I want you to feel good. And I'm like, thank you.
Yes, and I feel like that's when people get into the reading slumps, right? So it's like maybe I was feeling a little bit that way when I finished When the Moon Hatched, or even through that process. Like I remember I was like, okay, like this book is like it's cool, but it's also like I think it's just at some point you need that palate cleanser, something to kind of restart you. And you and I both weren't enjoying Dragonfall too much, like couldn't get really much into it, so we did.
I think we were like emotionally like tapped almost. It was like and so we may do that, we may review that book in the future, we may not, but we really like we wanted to approach a book like with a sense of like we wanted to match the book to the mood, you know what I mean?
Yes, exactly.
And so I think Dragon's Bride gave us an opportunity to like, okay, we need to like take a deep breath. Like we've been emotionally sort of like tossed around for like what was it, like 6 books or something. And this was just like a little like this book just like took us by the hand and we're like okay, we're gonna like have a good little time.
It sent us off into our new kind of chapter that we'll have after, and it was still dragons. So hey, we gave you guys what we said: dragon books.
We delivered on dragon books. This dragon book just happens to be a little different to the rest of the dragon books.
I feel like it kicked it off, with the bang, or ended it with a bang.
I feel like this is like this is because we had Dragon Shifter in A Fire in the Sky. This is like dragon humanoid. Cross. Yeah, it's like humanoid dragon. Like we hadn't seen sort of like a character who is like both dragon and human.
Yeah, we went Onyx Storm, Dragon Riders, then Fire in the Sky was Dragon Shifters.
Yeah.
When the Moon Hatched was a different type of dragon lore.
Yeah, I would say like partially Dragon Rider, because like they do ride the dragons.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
But it was like, I don't know, with the dragons becoming the moons and like all these things, like it just was.
It was a different complex system regarding the dragons, and then this one was this
This is
big
a
old dragon who's
sexy dragon man.
yeah, considered like a
Humanoid.
humanoid, just like huge dragon demon.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a really fun time.
Yeah.
So let's dive into kind of the story of this. So
Mm-hmm.
Briar is our FMC, so our
Mm-hmm.
female main character, and then we have Soul is the male main character, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Briar in the beginning of the book, she is trying to escape her abusive husband, and her only way out was making a deal with the devil in an arranged marriage. So in that marriage arrangement, the demon slash dragons or other kind of creatures, they choose their bride, kind of like on a lineup.
It was very interesting because they all picked a different color dress, and
Yeah.
it was like this, and they like were addressed by their colors. So it was
Yeah.
like, I'll take blue, I'll take
It
purple.
was
It was very
dehumanizing, I'll say.
yeah, like human trafficking almost.
Very much.
But I feel like the whole thing, the reason this didn't have a darker, I mean, it's still dark, but like in parts, but like the reason I didn't like feel more uncomfortable with that is because everyone in these, they like sign a contract where they like, and that's what's so interesting about these contracts is like the demons who's running these contracts, and I think they're called contract demons. So the contract
demon bargainer.
Yes. And they have these contracts where like there is such a focus on like, do you understand the contract?
Yep.
Do you know what you are doing?
Love that.
Are you consenting to this? Now, I will say, like, I think on Briar's part, like she was being coerced by her circumstances. So like we have to recognize that like there's, even if you're signing a contract, I think that would count as like dubious consent. It's like she clearly has no other options that she sees as viable, and maybe doesn't have any other viable options. But it's interesting to see sort of this, you're riding this line between like, this is an auction for a human, which is like human trafficking and enslavement themes, and there's been this contract, and Briar asserts several times like, I have signed up for this, I'm walking into this eyes wide open regarding what I'm doing. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it gave the consent, like she consented to this, and it seems like what I really loved about this book is the communication. It was very much open communication and a very good understanding of what was in play. I mean, obviously you sign up for something and then you truly see what it is and you're like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
So Soul, which is the male main character, he chose her with the attraction of her fiery red hair. I remember he mentioned that. And part of the contract was mentioned that Soul was expected to seduce her.
Yes, it was and again, the wording was so interesting here. Like you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. Like everything should be consenting. The only thing that you're agreeing to is that you're giving your owner, I guess, it's just horrible. It's horrible to say. You're giving your demon person the opportunity to seduce you.
Right. Well, husband at this point, because it's like a marriage contract.
Well, but I think there's even some like when they go to get married, there's some back and forth about like, I don't want to get married, I want to get married. Anyway, so but they consent to the opportunity to be seduced. But everything after that, it's like that's not guaranteed. Like it's not like a sex contract where they're agreeing to be sex workers, which again, like sex work is real work. Like that's a different topic. And in this book, they're not agreeing to be sex workers, although they do mention like other humans that come to the demon lands basically as sex workers. And you see a little bit the way the bargainer demon like really honors those contracts between the sort of demon lords and the sex workers that they bring into their lands.
Yeah. And this marriage, or the marriage that kind of these demons slash creatures do, is something that benefits the territory slash their lands.
Mm,
Specifically with the humans, because the humans are able to conduct magic, even if they don't have magic. Something about them kind of
mm,
strengthens the magic in the land.
mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a lot of the ulterior motive that Soul has with, like, he really loves his people and wants to help feed his people, because that's a
Yeah.
worry that he kind of brings up maybe in the later portion of the book of, like, yes, the lands are not dry, or like people are not starving now, but at
Mm.
some point they will. And that's where, like, kind of the child and all of that comes into play after.
Yeah, and I feel like this one thing that and I wonder if it's purposeful on Katie Roberts' part in making like Soul is intimidating. He's large, he's like this menacing, like
He's
he
got horns, I think, or is
yeah,
that the other?
he's got horns sort of like on his like the
Mm,
sides of his head. Like he's a very physically intimidating creature
yeah,
person. Um and from the very start, like how usually in like dark romance books that are more like intense, like the sort of like intense bad guy figure, like
yeah,
you go for a long time genuinely wondering if they're a good person or not. Like you're like, are you bad? Like what do you
yeah.
do? There's a lot of mystery. And I feel like Katie Robert just right away is like, he has good motives. Like you immediately know,
Oh, yeah.
even if it's from Briar's perspective, like even throughout she's like, yeah, I'm very intimidated, I don't know what the fuck is going on, but but I'm being asked how about my welfare. I'm being
Yeah.
asked over and over again, like about what I'm comfortable with and what I'm not. I'm seeing that Soul has people that he's taking care of. Like there's a comfort to that where it's like I never doubted that Soul had good intentions. Um,
Mhm.
it was just a matter of like how do they come together with these like conflicting values at certain point or desires.
For sure. I think the values part comes up, and that's kind of the ongoing conversation between them.
Mm,
Just, a lot of that bodily autonomy that she
yeah.
has of, like, not wanting to have children, and kind of still having the haunting moments of her past relationship. So, like, that's kind of
Yeah.
a lot of the conversation of the story, and maybe her internal demons.
Well, and it drives a lot of her internal dialogue
Yep.
is
Yeah.
is trying to basically figure out how to exist in this realm and
Mhm.
um that she's contracted for 7 years.
Yep.
And so she's trying to figure out how do I exist in this space for 7 years. And once she starts to like feel some sort of interest towards Soul,
Yep.
there's a lot of back and forth about like okay, he seems like a trustworthy person, but so didn't Ethan, which
Mm.
is her ex,
Her,
which,
yeah.
by the way, if we neglected to mention, part of this contract is that the bargainer demon murders
Oh,
Ethan
yes, that's
when she
right.
signs the contract. And so at the very top of this book, and I, I really like the bargainer demon too. Like there's something about him. I would venture to guess that in whatever his book is, which
Mm.
I haven't read any of these other, there are other books in this series
Yeah.
that he sounds like he takes the contracts that he makes very seriously, even with the humans that he brings to the realm for sex work. Like he is very protective of those contracts and of the people in the contracts. And I get the feeling like when he says like I will take care of like he's like I don't usually do this, like I would fulfill my end of the contract at the end of the 7 years. He chooses to murder Ethan before she ever does the 7 years.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is speaking to sort of his protectiveness, like he
Yeah.
saw her bruised face and was like
Oh.
I'm gonna fuck this guy up.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to see like her toggling between like what she's seeing from Soul and how she's feeling. And then like, okay, but I have this past experience where it's like I also couldn't I ultimately feel like I can't trust myself because I also chose Ethan. And like
Yeah.
and I think there's some like she leans into some like victim blaming for herself of like, I should have known,
Yep.
or
Yep.
many of those things that, you know, we see in the intimate partner violence space.
Yep.
But it very much is present in her dialogue across time. And
Yeah.
even in the way that Soul interacts with her, he intuits that something's up even before she ever tells him anything.
Yeah.
And kind of is tender with her because he sees that she's trying to figure stuff out.
And we love a dragon who has kind of that tenderness. I
Oh my
really
gosh.
love that about his character.
Yeah.
And she even mentions, you know, regarding kind of the hesitation with her because of her past experience, where Ethan, in the 3 years, that's when he started to actually physically abuse her.
Yeah.
So that is, you know, I'm sure in her mind she's like, wow, even after a certain amount of years, that's when things escalated. So
Yep.
could be part of her worry in this 7-year contract that she has. But I feel like Soul kept trying to like reinforce that he is like a nice person.
Yeah. And like I think even like at one point it was like he moves very slowly. He like
Yeah.
does not like he's like a dragon lord, and he's like
Yeah.
like tiptoeing around being like, don't move too quickly, don't like, and like very aware of her startle response, which is like another sort of
It's
like,
so interesting.
yeah, he from the start is sort of very aware.
He can like sense it too. He has like I forget what it's called, but there is something where he's able to kind of sense her.
I wonder if it was like a scent thing, because I know
The scent.
he like scents her arousal, and
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
think there's certain points where he can like scent her fear, or like it
Yeah.
sort of is animalistic in the way that,
Right.
you know, he has this animalistic side of him that
That's
like
true.
can intuit on multiple levels.
Yeah.
There was one part that I was like, there was one part where it was like, she's so breakable but strong, or something like that. That goes a little bit far for me of like a
Yeah.
like, I don't know, like, don't call me breakable. Like
I know.
I'm going through shit, but like there was a couple of points, but she also like, in the times where he shows her that tenderness, or like is like, here, let me carry you, like she loves that shit.
Yeah.
So like that's, I think, what keeps, at any like moments where like I'm personally annoyed, I think that has more to do with like how I would feel if someone was like, you're so breakable but strong. I'm like, don't try to find me.
Yeah, it's our own kind of
my drama. How dare you?
It's our own projection of our personal.
Yeah.
Because I definitely don't like that kind of fragile type of like kind of mindset that a lot of authors kind of put on their female characters, of them being so tiny and small, and yeah, it's not very inclusive sometimes. So
word.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Trauma absolutely is a real thing. Trying to process trauma, real thing.
Yeah.
You being emotional while you're doing that, or unsure of other relationships while you're doing that, all real things. I just don't like this categorization of like breakable.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a vase. I'm a person, you know? Like, and Briar, it's interesting to see her at different points. Like, she'll be like, I don't, he like wants to carry me everywhere, but I kind of like it. And like,
she's back and forth with it.
She's like, he's treating me like I'm this like tender little flower, so I kind of like it. So here's the thing, girly pop, if you like it,
just accept it. I think
if you like that, great, go for it.
Yeah, she was exploring a lot of things and questioning herself, because she had never experienced that before, even with like sexual experiences and all of that. And to tie into when you mentioned about his animalistic features, when Briar went to Soul's house or castle, wherever he lives, I didn't really remember like how it was described, but it really reminded me of the Beauty and the Beast.
Yes.
Because he has this amazing library with books everywhere, and I mean, true enemies to lovers, the OG. I feel like for me, I love Beauty and the Beast.
Oh yeah. It was my favorite. When I was a kid, I was Beauty for 3 years.
That's when our lore started.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like, you want to know where it really started? Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast.
take me to a library in your
Yeah.
giant castle,
Oh,
and like,
and it was like such a dark gothic vibe.
He had his
Oh,
like keep. I also like that he
yes.
was like, we can't have anybody in this keep because I'm gonna like
Yeah.
fuck everybody up if they even look at you. Like that like possessiveness, which
Yeah.
again, in the real world space, like most of the time is problematic if you're sort of enforcing this possessiveness over people. And in these sort of fantastical spaces, we can explore some of that in a way that you might not in real life.
Right. Yeah.
And she loves that shit. Like, and
Mhm.
I think that's what keeps this as lighter and more fun. And like, it's like along the way, everything is there. There's consent talk throughout, and like she's into the shit that's happening. Like there's no point where she's like, I really hate this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I think there at the beginning there's a point where she's like, I hate that I have to sign this contract. I hate that I'm having to like,
The position it puts her
yeah,
in,
like it's
Yeah.
uncomfortable. But like him carrying her, him
Oh.
touching her in certain ways, or like whatever they're doing, like
Yeah.
throughout she reiterates like, I'm not sure why I love this, but I love this. And
Mm.
so that's when I'm like, when we're looking at what makes for good sex, if it's safe and it's consensual, like good sex.
Yeah.
So for her, you can see her reiterating even in her own mind, like, oh, like I actually I like really like this. I
Yeah.
want to keep doing it. Which is cool to see her exploring herself in that way.
Yeah. So to get into what soul looks like, okay, prepare yourself, everyone. Okay. So he is this huge green dragon, right? And let's get into the appendages of it all.
I'm like, when are we gonna do a full scan, or are we just gonna go right to the business?
Okay. So he has two penises. Let me just let you know this.
A dual phallus situation.
Yeah. One is called his upper and
this is the lower. So I picture they are stacked on top of each other. I believe that's
okay.
Like, they're like
right, yes.
They're not side by side. They're
they're on
upper
top
and
of
lower.
each
other. And let me if you, I mean, I would hope you have read the book if we're spoiling the whole thing for you right now. Like, I hope you read it. But if you haven't, and there's a chance that you haven't, there's no warning on that. Like he doesn't say to her beforehand.
I think
like,
it's when he just unzips his pants and she's like,
drops trout. He just drops trout. And out they spring. And it's like,
oh my god.
Wow. Like
and they're green. So I can mention.
They're huge.
They're huge and green.
They're huge and green. There's two of them. And I think Briar reacts, I think how many of us might, which was like, oh my god, what do I do?
Oh yeah, she's afraid. She's afraid that it won't fit.
Well, when you're 4'0" and he's 10'7", and that's hyperbole, but when you're like a human-sized woman, and this is like a reptilian
dragon,
gargantuan
man,
she has some very real medical concerns that I think are totally valid.
Yeah, so it was this book. It was just a spicy good time, and a lot of exploring with their sexual kind of relationship, and you know his two cooks, is it? Yeah. So
his double whammy,
double whammy.
His double whammy played a lot, and here was the thing: like Katee Robert really leaned in. Like she was like, if I'm going to make this anatomy a thing, we're really going to explore what one could do.
You know, and that makes me curious about what the other books are about. The Kraken, you know.
It's like 10 tentacles, like where
also
more tentacles than places to put them.
That would be I think we should revisit the other books too.
Yeah.
Soul also has a tail. How do you feel about a tail?
So I do know in King Spaces that there's a whole thing around tails and tentacles. Like that there are people who like really enjoy like a silicone mold of a tail or a tentacle. And here's the thing, this is the first time I've read a book where like a tail factored in. I'm like kind of ashamed to say that, because I feel like given all the books that we read, like
I think
should I not have come across some sort of like sexual use of a tail at some point?
In Cruel Prince,
You know
he has a
what?
tail.
He does, but I don't think he
I
uses
haven't read it yet, but I have heard that he has a
Oh,
tail.
I did read it. And it was a while ago, and it wasn't my favorite. So maybe I just blocked that out. I don't know. But this was like this was the first time where I remember reading a book and being like, oh, a tail is being used like as a sexual item.
Oh yeah, and he uses it.
And oh yeah. Yes you do. So she's a busy woman. She's got a lot. There's the double whammy, and then there's the tail, and he puts them all to very good use several times. And
I love that he was always very gentle and communication. Hey, that's a big thing in this world, and making sure that everyone's okay.
You have to, like, if that's your anatomy, if your anatomy and your partner's anatomy are that diametrically like different, like you cannot, like, they had to communicate about how this was going to work, because in her, like, and in this moment I was like, her and I reactions are totally aligned. She's like, I don't know what
I don't know what you want me to do with that, but
what to do. And to their credit, they talk about it. They like have a dialogue about like, okay, like, and this is how this works.
This is where this book is a great example of like, if you are into those type of things, or just the example of like when you want to try out different things, open communication is very important. And
100%.
Always checking in kind of throughout, or having the safe words and things like that.
Consent is continual. Just because you consent to something 2 days ago or an hour ago, it doesn't, there's a difference between talking about something and then actually physically trying it. And you might get in the middle of something and decide that it's not for you, and that's okay. And then consent needs to be renegotiated in moment by moment. And you see them engaging with that. And that's another thing that I really like about Katee Robert books is like,
okay, Katie, you are therapist approved. Let me let you know this right now, because this is awesome.
Honestly, okay, I could pop off. I could pop off, because I'm so into the Neon Gods books because of the way that sex and sexuality is portrayed, the way that consent conversations happen, conversations around birth control, which we'll get into.
Oh yes, that's our next.
Like all of that, it obviously is fantastical, and there are some real elements where like it reflects real conversations that people should be having in sex spaces, but aren't, because it's like, oh, is that sexy? Is that gonna like turn the mood or whatever? It's like,
and I may have a controversial opinion regarding this.
Okay, I'm ready.
This is where my two sides of like real, like I guess real life thing, and I'm like, yes, this is needed. And then I have my reader mind. Okay, sometimes we differ.
Yes.
Where it's like and when I've read different moments when kind of the birth control thing or all of that, it like is like the stopping part of a sex scene. I may have something wrong with me where I'm just like, okay, can y'all not?
I love when you reach that moment, like when you're reading, you're like, is it me? What is this?
I'm like, why do you? It's like, of course you got to talk about it, but do I want to read about it? Like, this is where I'm kind of conflicted in my mind, where I'm like, it is a little bit of a turnoff, but it's not like detrimental. But I do believe that birth control, and obviously talking about kind of the consequences of not having safe sex. But yeah, I think when I read it in a fantasy book, it's a little like, okay.
See, I don't know. It, for me, it kind of, it normalizes it as a part of like conversations around birth control or other things like that become sexy when it becomes a part of the conversation. You know what I mean? It's like,
I get you.
I just there's a piece of me that I'm like, Hell yeah. Hell
I
yeah.
agree, and that's where I conflict because it's like, of course, even in a fantasy
Mm.
world, people can still get pregnant. Even these creatures can still get pregnant. So I
Well,
get
and
it.
but I also get what you're saying. It's like I go to fantasy novels to not worry about the things that like
Yeah,
you would need to worry about in like
like
a real life sort
yeah.
of situation.
Right. And it's always like a lot of the dialogue is always like, no, I've taken the
The potion, the
the
magic potion.
potion, the
Yeah.
potion, the blocker,
I've
whatever.
taken the I've sipped the magical tonic and now and forever
It's hilarious.
until I decide in my mind I don't want to be pregnant or I do want to be pregnant. Like,
Yeah, I
but
think
I think this see, this is where I was on board with the way they even handled birth control. Because the
Yep.
thing is,
Yep.
it's like, yes, like I think there is a time and place for there to be a magical tonic,
Yes.
and we don't talk about it. It's like, I took the tonic. Did you? Yeah. Okay. Perfect. We
Right,
never.
move on.
Yeah. We don't have to worry about it. I think part of, and I feel like I'm initiating you into the Katee Robert experience. I'm like, so this is how it goes.
Oh no, I'm totally a fan.
But I think one of the things that Katee Robert really stands on is like representing good, consenting, like
Yes.
real. There's real conversations, real dynamics happening, and it's still hot. It's
Yeah.
still sexy. And so I think for her, the message run, like she purposely puts that in there. I think even knowing that in a normal fantasy book, you wouldn't have conversations about this, but it's giving folks the opportunity to be like, oh, I can have that conversation. I am able to like talk about the friggin' pendant and
Yes.
still like get my rocks off later.
Yeah, so talking about the pendant, that is like their form of birth control, where Soul was able to get this pendant that
Mm.
Briar has to like bleed on every month
Yeah.
and wear it nonstop, like kind of wear it all the time until she decides that she wants to be pregnant. Then,
Yeah.
she can take it off.
Mhm.
And that's something she kind of goes back and forth about a lot. And the difficult part is there's this mating frenzy that
Oh my
occurs,
goodness.
and it heightens obviously like their sexual vibes and a lot of the territorial behavior that Soul has with Briar,
Yeah.
where she can't even be around any other kind of man demon creature.
Even
um
like his cousin is in the keep with them to
yeah,
like
Azaziel, right?
yeah, to
Or
like
yeah,
do paperwork or something. And literally,
paperwork.
I'm not even like they literally are like, make sure you get the paperwork done. Like they talk about it several times.
Hilarious.
The dragon paperwork.
Because I
That the
mean, hey,
dragons
it's
have.
contract work.
Yeah.
Contracts.
Listen, if I'm a dragon in a mystical realm, I still gotta sign,
The
deeds and
scroll.
stuff. Yeah, I still gotta roll up. I get a hand cramp with all the papers I'm signing.
Oh, that's too funny.
But even like she's his cousin, and also like and still and someone he trusts, and still he's like, get the fuck away from her.
Yeah.
And this is where I think you see like breeding kink come in. Like
Mhm.
this is where like you can kind of in this book and really in any Katee Robert book, you can kind of tick off the kinks. Like,
Yep.
okay, this book is focused on this, and this kink. And I think there's a like a possessiveness mating bond kind of like dominance kink here
Yeah.
that plays in with him going into this mating
Yeah.
frenzy. And he says several times, do not run away from me.
Yeah, because he
I
can't control
will
himself.
chase you. And I think, it's pretty obvious from the start that at some point she's gonna be like, I'm running.
Right, and she was never afraid of him throughout this whole process, which was so interesting. There was moments where I mean, maybe this is later in the therapist's mind, but there was like a quote that she mentioned where it's like she was feeling one thing, but then questioned herself as like, why wasn't she feeling a different thing?
Yeah.
And we'll get into that with therapy mind. But I thought that was really interesting where even
Mm,
just, I wonder why she felt so safe with him.
yeah.
And regarding kind of more of that breeding kink, and there was a kind of a pregnancy scare that happened.
Oh man.
They were able to get another pendant very quickly, ASAP.
Oh, gotta get the pendant, the magical blood pendant. Well, and the bargainer demon, like I think this is another example where you see the
Yep.
bargainer demon being like,
Mhm.
we have these contracts, nothing happens, you don't want, like, the
Yeah.
only thing you've consented to is to being seduced. Everything else must be decided.
Yeah.
And she really has to fight hard to be like, no, like, we decided, because even like in that moment, Soul says, never run from me. The
Mhm.
inevitable moment comes where she's like, I'm cutting tail and running because I want you to chase me, which is another kink. It's that like
Predator prey.
predator prey kink. Um, and she's so into it, and he's so into it, obviously. And they have this moment where his tooth like hooks into the pendant,
Oh
and then
yeah.
he like looks in her eyes, and like they share this moment,
Mm.
and she's like, fuck it, do it. And they rip the pendant off. Like, it's made very, very clear that they
They agree.
share a
Yeah.
look.
Yeah.
They decide together in that moment, rip the pendant off,
Yep.
for better or for worse.
An immediate regret after.
Listen, that's the tension here between
Yeah.
loving a breeding kink and a cream pie
Yeah.
and not wanting children. Like
Yeah.
I think you see again, it's these warring desires within her.
Yeah.
Like, she wants him to do this, and she also wants to ensure her safety, and like all of these things can exist in the same space. As with so much that is incorporated in sexuality, like, oftentimes people are not struggling with just like one desire or one goal. It's like there's multiple desires
Yeah.
at play, and they conflict sometimes. And the bargainer demon is so fast to be like,
Yeah. He was.
you've been taken advantage of.
Yeah. He was ready to send her off back to the human
Yeah.
lands. That's
Oh,
the
she
thing.
like
Yeah.
pounced. She like tried to rip his face off. She was
Yeah.
like, bring me back to Seoul. He's like, I'm not bringing you back there. It was I think exactly 3 days of her being like
Yeah.
a friggin' like, in the Aristocats, which I know that movie is problematic in some ways, but I grew up on problematic Disney movies, so
it's
this
our
is the more,
childhood, okay?
this is the more you get. When like I think it was Berlioz or Toulouse goes like he's like
on the
got his little
piano.
hackles up, and he's like, that's what I picture her being mad.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
her going after this demon's face is like a little tiny kitten being like,
Oh,
and he's
so
just
cute.
like,
I love the Aristocats.
honestly, same. Like,
So cute.
we can own up to the problematic pieces of this, and I love the like creme de la Edgar. Like, the whole thing just unfolds in a way that's very nostalgic for me. So yeah, anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, but all of that to say that when the pendant rips off, there's a very thoughtful sort of like moment between
Yeah,
them.
they're like, oh shit.
And then the bargainer demon's like comes in guns blazing, like,
yeah, so crisis averted. They were able to get the pendant.
pendant number 2 secured.
Yeah, and a lot of kind of the later back and forth was the idea of having a child, to save the lands, or kind of to give more power. They were able to compromise and stay together and decide to have children later. Love that.
Hell yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, again, like, you have this example of two people, well, one person and one dragon person, who have, sort of separate goals at the start, and who have different ideas of the timeline, right? And they talk about it. They discuss their boundaries. They discuss what's going to work for them and what doesn't, and ultimately come to a compromise that really works for both of them, which is like chef's kiss for me.
Yeah. And that's kind of the end of the story. We get a happily ever after.
Hell yeah.
She calls him her dragon Prince Charming.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about a Disney movie, you think about that happily ever after, that
oh yeah,
the prince, coming to save you.
Disney, you should totally pick this story up and animate this, because it would be.
See what you do with it,
interesting.
Sprinkle some magic on it.
Whatever. But yeah, it is. She's like pregnant and happy, and she feels safe, and he's happy, and they have the baby, and the baby's fine. It's in Hyacinth, it's cute, and it's blue.
Yeah, and they have magical lands. Their people are good.
Yeah,
what a story.
What it like. just feeling good. Like
Yeah.
just just horniness throughout the book, and then just a happy ever after. And
Yeah. And I love that.
yeah.
Let's get into some of the teehee moments. A few of the ones I had. So this is kind of maybe in the middle-ish of the book. She says, I'm sure your world has its dangers, but so far I've only found delights. And then Soul is like, there are dangers, but I will have you around delights. Something along those lines. And I thought that was really beautiful, where it's just like he wants her to be around the best of the best in a way, and just
Yeah.
not see kind of or be around dangerous creatures or dangerous things.
Well, and I think this is like, this also plays into I don't know if there's a specific kink name for it, but like, and you see this a little bit even in like some of the like fae books around like
Oh yeah.
fae males or like the dragon males have this like caretaking thing where they're
Yeah.
like, let me carry you, let
It's
me
that possessiveness in a
feed
way.
you, like I
Yeah.
want to feed you, I want to take care of you, like let me nest around you. And Briar loves that. She's
Yeah.
like, yeah, carry me places, feed
Yeah.
me.
I
Like
wonder if it's connected to the animal.
that animalistic side.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if you've seen, this is like a little bit of a side quest, but do you follow on social media? There's these two eagles that
No.
have tried to have eagle babies for a long time.
No.
Think the eagle, and I'm totally pulling this out of thin air, so it could be wrong, but the eagle mom's name is Jackie, and the eagle dad has a name,
Oh.
but they're so cute. And like, eagle dad is so, he just wants to take care of her so badly. And it like it just, when I think about like that like animalistic caretaking, like let me bring you food, let me like, he like brings sticks to the nest, but sometimes like hits her in the face with them when he lands.
Okay.
By accident.
I mean, hey.
And Jackie's like, what
it's a
the
big stick.
fuck? But like, it's this like very like tender, well-meaning, like let me
Aw.
take care of you, make sure you're okay and
That's
warm
so
and happy.
sweet.
If I highly recommend.
I gotta check it out.
They for a couple years weren't able to hatch chicks, and it was like
Oh.
they were very sad, and now they just hatched chicks, and they're like,
Oh, congrats to them.
shout out to the eagle whose name is maybe Jackie and her husband.
They're up in the nest as a family.
They have a video camera, and you could just watch them
Oh.
like raising their little eagle babies.
It's so cute.
It's fabulous. But he really is nesting around her. Soul is like, he's bringing her food, he's carrying her.
Yeah, so it's that animal connection. And another teehee moment I had, this one was page 87. You can take me, bride. You were made for me. I love that. So obviously this was in a spicy moment, but I love that he said you were made for me. And that's so interesting.
Which so you were made for me. Like, I love that sentiment. And also he does have the double whammy, which makes me wonder, do dragon women have a corresponding double whammy? Which I had not thought
two
about.
Entrants. Well, I mean, technically she does too, though, but it's small. And I think they talk about that where it's like, yeah, that one's too small. We can't fit it in that one, girl.
Exit only.
Exit only. And
I'm more thinking of like two vaginas.
Okay. I was gonna say, hey, there are two.
Oh my god.
But yeah, I think having two corresponding holes would.
Oh my god. Oh, that was so funny. She does have two. I think the her second one's only for the tail, I think.
It's the tail end.
Oh my god.
You know, I love the way that this is the way we're starting off our day. This is setting such a great tone for the rest of our busy work day.
It's 10:30 in the morning. Oh my god.
So yeah, so we already discussed the tail. That was a note I had on here of like, do we dig a tail?
Again, this is the first time I never read a book that really like clocks the roll of the tail. I have read Cruel Prince, so apparently I just didn't pay attention to that. Well, okay, in Cruel Prince, and I'm not, this isn't a huge spoiler, his tail's like a rat tail, and I don't like that.
Oh no, I want a big, strong, like kind of like. Have you seen an alligator? Obviously, like that gator tail.
I think that's what.
Yeah.
I think that's what Soul's rocking.
I'm repping the Florida with the gators. Yeah, so I imagine Soul having that gator tail, whipping it back and forth as he walks.
He does. He wraps it around her. He does a lot of things with it. But it was the first time I had ever like really like considered the possibilities in regards to a tail. The jury's still out. I'm not sure how to feel about it.
I have one more tea moment. I didn't write down the page, but I think they're kind of like frolicking in the lands or something, and she's like, oh, like, are there dangerous predators around here? And he says, I'm the most dangerous predator around. I love that. Yes. Like, again, it's like a strong, protective, like, person.
And predator prey kink. Like, she, from the moment he says, do not run, she's constantly thinking about it. Like, she brings it up several times. She's like, I know I shouldn't run, but like, I really want to. And I think when he's like, I'm the biggest, baddest predator around, like, she really enjoys that. Which, good for her.
Yeah. So tell me some of your tea moments.
Oh my god. Okay. So some of these are more like hee in the like emotional, like cute way. Okay. And then some of these are a little bit more sensual. But the first one, so one of the things that we mentioned was that Briar's really processing like how to be in relationship as she's in relationship with Soul, and like what she wants to bring to her dynamic with Soul as she's like healing from Ethan. And one of the things that I think Katee Robert tracks really well is that Briar takes these like small risks. They shouldn't be risks, but like due to her trauma and to the abuse are risks for her. She's like, when I would do this to Ethan or like with Ethan, I would get hurt. And so like she's sort of testing the waters in several ways. And one of the times she touches him, like not even in like it's like sort of in an innocuous small way, like maybe his arm or something.
Oh, yeah.
And then she apologizes to him. And this is earlier on when she's like really starting off like timid and like unsure of herself. And he just goes, never apologize for touching me, Briar. Aww. Never. And I love that moment because it made me tiki because it was like it was him showing her like, you don't have to be sorry for doing these like small, loving, caring things. Like it's I want you to feel open and able to touch me. The other one also has to do with like accepting her like self, like sort of him showing her that she can be accepted for all the things that she wants.
Right.
And
normalizing and kind of,
And she says, he's kind and caring and completely willing to play bedroom games with me without any judgment or shame. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. And I love this quote because I think for folks who engage in various kinks, there's a lot of societal shame and also like private shame about like, okay, I really want this, but like someone or something has told me that it's not okay. Like to, so if for Briar, like she really loves dominance games and like she loves like breeding games and she loves predator prey games. Those are all kinks that are like she's developing, and it is so sweet to see her take these risks in the bedroom and have him meet it with like, this is I want this, you want this, let's get fucking excited. And so it's nice to see her not being judged for these things that she really likes. And so that's why it was a tiki moment for me, because she's like, you like will get kinky with me. I'm like,
and then it's okay.
Yeah,
I like
exactly. The other two are a little bit saucier. One is, he says, "Now stop talking about my cock unless you intend to do something with it." Oh, woo. Okay. First of all, cocks first. Like, don't let,
Plural.
yeah, don't misrepresent this here. But also, like, hell yeah, hell yeah. Like, if you're gonna talk about my body, like,
Do something about it.
you better be prepared.
Yeah.
And then the last one is, how much of me can you take? There's only one way to find out. And that's like,
Use your imagination,
challenge.
guys. You can
Yeah.
tell.
I think you know what that's about.
Yeah.
So those were some of my, like, sort of like two more like sweet tiki moments, and then more like
Yeah.
saucy tiki moments.
Let's get into therapy mind, because there were a lot of things, even with a spice book like this, we can psychoanalyze and bring up some of these true topics to talk about, and I love that. So, like I mentioned earlier about something that Breyer mentioned. So in page 64, she says, "By all rights, I should be terrified out of my mind, but it's not knives slicing at the inside of my stomach, it's butterflies." So, when we see these kind of relationship dynamics of perhaps like red flags or danger, when we become attracted to that versus staying away from that, how do you think that plays into the role of unhealthy relationships? Obviously, like maybe Briar's previous marriage, or just like kind of that mindset of like, oh, I want someone dangerous. I want someone who gives me those red flags.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I think this is especially important for us to have this conversation within the context of romantasy books.
Mm-hmm.
Because what's so important to recognize is that many of these books portray sex and sexuality dynamics that would not work in a real world space.
Yep.
The reason they're in a book is it becomes a part of the fantasy. And fantasizing about something is a great way to express your sexuality. Like, if you have, certain kinks, like, and there are books that I'm thinking of, like, for example, and we've talked a little bit about this, but like Zodiac Academy, I have some like very deep misgivings about Zodiac Academy that I am not going to get into. But one of the prevailing dynamics around the Zodiac Academy is leaning into bully kinks. That, like, your school bully or your college bully would become your lover or whatever.
And to say, would I be into that? Probably.
And that's it's like, when we can read that in a book, it scratches that itch, right? It's like, okay, we can fantasize about what this dynamic might look like. And to be perfectly honest, like, when I read it, it's not my thing. It's not for me. But like, and I think that's part of the reason why I struggle with those books. But like, what I think we need to be so careful about understanding, and what I worry that, like, if I were reading this book at 18, would I understand this? I'm not sure. Probably not. But that what you're seeing playing out in this book is fantasy. That you do not deserve to be bullied in order to receive love.
Attention.
Exactly. Like, some of these things are just not things that we can mimic in real life in the sort of day-to-day space. Now, what I think is also important to recognize is that if you have a bully kink, or if you have a kink that maybe you won't see coming to fruition on sort of the natural, like in the street, you can make those happen in like carefully negotiated sexual circumstances. Like, that's part of what kink is. It's like, you negotiate this ahead of time. There are safe words. There are things that you can do so that you can approximate that experience. Like, you can mimic, like, whatever the kink is, like predator prey. You can mimic a breeding kink. You can mimic these things, but have them be negotiated ahead of time and safety protocols established so that it never becomes a harmful, non-consensual thing. But I think when you see these relationship dynamics that lean into some of these some of these kinks or some of these fantasy dynamics, we have to be really careful not to use that as a blueprint for just trying to find someone without those conversations happening.
Yeah.
So I think there's a kink element to this, but also I think I have seen folks get really um, mixed up between butterflies and fear. That
Yeah.
like folks will be like, oh, like I have so much, like butterflies when I'm around them. It's so exciting. And that excitement
Yeah.
and fear can be mixed or can both be happening at once.
Yeah.
I'm actually like when folks say like, oh, they give me so many butterflies, or like I'm so like
I
nervous
feel like
around
that's a
them.
red flag.
It to me, it's like everybody's body's different. Your reactions are going to be different to like
Yeah.
new people, and like I want to acknowledge that it works different for everyone. But if all you feel is nervousness and butterflies when you're around a person,
Yeah.
it is really worth asking the question,
Yeah.
is my body trying to tell me something that like my mind hasn't caught up with yet?
Yeah.
Like it is my excitement, and I'm like using air quotes here, is my excitement just nerves? Am I nervous, or are you making me nervous? Are
Right.
you making me uncomfortable? But I've been told my whole life that when I'm meeting someone new,
They give you
they give me
butterflies.
butterflies. It's
Yeah.
and I have to tell you personally, like I'm like I don't need butterflies. Like
I want to be calm, cool, calm, and collected. Like,
I I want to feel warmth.
yep.
I want to feel contentment.
Yeah.
I want to feel connection. I want to feel safe. I want to feel like
Yeah.
and of course when there's someone new, you're meeting someone new, like
Yeah.
there
That
is an
initial
element.
first date, I think obviously, yeah, you'll feel a little nervous. Maybe
Yeah.
you can correlate to those butterflies, but
Yeah.
that person shouldn't make you feel nervous all the time.
No. And really tracking, okay, is this excitement or am I afraid? Is this
Right.
excitement or anxiety? And if you're getting the feeling like things are moving too fast, that you are kind of in an activated space and trying to make decisions from that space, really making sure to take a deep breath, like respect your body's boundaries,
Yeah.
respect your boundaries, because I think that's where people, that's where I've seen confusion happen for folks
Yeah.
around building new relationships.
And I think that's where therapy a lot puts comes into play where, maybe you need a little bit more guidance on healthy, unhealthy relationships and
Mm,
being more in tune with your body and things like that. So I thought that was something that really stood out for me to mention. Something else that I feel is a topic a lot with many of my clients is self-love, and kind of just like confidence, things like that. So, self love and the way that an abusive relationship can diminish your confidence
mm,
or parts that we love about ourselves. So, in page 64, she says, I will reclaim everything he tried to take from me, no matter how long it takes. So, in this conversation or dialogue with herself, she was talking about her freckles on her face that her previous husband, Ethan, we don't like you, Ethan,
Ethan.
he would make fun of them and call them childish freckles. Like
Mm,
they were a feature I loved and grew to hate. That is what
wow.
Breyer said. If that was a arrow to my heart, that was so tough because I feel like, it's such a hard thing seeing that, kind of in the counseling space, people being in that mindset. And then also reading about it, I feel like it touches a little bit more of my heartstrings. So a question I had was like, why do you think Ethan would call Briar's freckles childish and connected maybe to the idea of the societal standard of looks? Like how do we see this in the counseling space with like low self-esteem and self-love?
I love this. I love this question. And I think I've mentioned this before, but I practice from what's called the body liberation perspective, which is like the one of the foundational ideas is that all bodies are good bodies and that everyone should have the autonomy and the liberty to relate to their bodies and do with their bodies what they see fit. And there's a deep sort of commitment to the idea that it is not my or anyone's job to police someone's body, to even register an opinion about someone's body. Now, there can be times where someone's asking you for a genuine, they want to know an opinion about a hairstyle or something. Like there are exceptions to, and there are ways to sort of have conversations that are mindful and loving and thoughtful. But for the most part, like I am adamantly against talking about people's bodies. Even I'm very careful about even complimenting people's bodies. One thing that we see is in like diet and weight loss spaces, which I'm also really against. And we can get into that too. But you see people like someone will lose weight and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, you look so good. You look awesome. What are you doing? You look good." And
And they never mention that you look good before. Yeah.
so did I look bad before?
Mm.
When do I look bad? When am
Yeah.
I bad? If I'm good right now, when am I bad?
Yeah.
And so this is one of those things where it's like bodies are used, and essentially what you're seeing Ethan do, in my opinion, is police her body. It's a
Yeah.
policing of your body, one, to undercut your confidence and to undercut your belief in yourself,
Yep.
but also to exert my power over you.
Yeah.
If I can belittle you with,
About something she cannot change much. I mean,
well, and it's you know, it's nobody's business. Like
right.
whether you have freckles and you love them, or you have freckles and you want to cover them with makeup, or you have
Yep.
freckles
Yep.
in some places where you want makeup on them and you don't in others, like it is nobody's business
Yeah.
what your body is like.
Mm.
And your body is your vessel for the world. So it's like to to undercut someone's worth via their body. It's such an attack on personhood, in my
Yeah.
opinion, and one that I think is sort of socially acceptable. Like we're just given free reign to comment on people's bodies
All the
all
time.
the time,
All the time.
and in a way that you would never like. I feel like there's a social acceptability to body policing
Mm.
because it has become such a part of like the fat phobia of our society. Like I could pop off about this, but I think ultimately what you're seeing from Ethan is a way to control her, in multiple sort of like actual physical like abuse control, but also just like I'm allowed to register my thoughts about your body
Yeah.
anytime I like, and I'm going to use it to make you feel less than. And so for her to be able to reclaim sort of her thoughts about her own body and be like, I like this is my body. It's a good body and I love my freckles. And
Yeah.
like it's a reclamation, and I think for so many it's there's something called like body grieving, where you grieve
Mm.
the release of society's expectations on you. That like
Yeah.
there's so much dialogue around your body has to look like this or should look like this, like in process, in progress, here's my progress pic, here's my before and after pic.
Yeah.
The idea is that there's going to be this perfect version of yourself that you can like
Mm.
attain if you just try hard enough. And so I think there's a grieving of letting go of those expectations and being like, I was never meant for that. That was not meant for me.
Yeah.
And a reclamation of her beauty and autonomy to be able to be like, I'm gonna define how I feel about my body and like what I like about it.
Yeah. And I think, that's why it stuck with me because it's something that a lot of people struggle with. We kind of talk about with many clients. So I thought that was something to mention.
Yeah.
Another part that was also kind of therapy related, I'm like, okay, Katie, she was bringing in all these good topics.
Hmm.
So a lot of times clients have a difficulty with relaxing and seeing that like kind of physical um things of doing throughout the day as their kind of way of feeling that they achieve something. So in the book, Breyer has a difficulty with relaxation slash self-care, which is something we always talk about in the therapy space.
Yes.
And she calls it lazing about. So she says, lazy, an insidious voice whispers in the back of my mind, if you don't prove your worth, he'll know you're really worthless. So there are kind of 2 points that I had in that. It's, why do you think clients have a difficult time doing nothing, versus seeing it in a mindset of like relaxation, rest, self-care, mindfulness?
Mm.
How do we tackle that in the counseling space and reframe laziness to a self-care mindset?
Mm.
Um, and I wonder what you think about that.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I see this all the
Yep.
time in I mean, like in every space that I inhabit. I see, um, folks contending with worthiness as a byproduct of productivity.
Yep.
That in
Yeah.
order to be worthy, I must be productive, and that productivity must never stop. Like, it doesn't matter what I'm going through. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if my body is telling me to slow down. It doesn't matter if I have extenuating circumstances that require rest. That to rest is immediately to be lazy. Um, and I think again we're butting up against sort of these societal messages. If you think about it, in work spaces and in sort of like the work grind mindset, there is a um, there is a financial vested interest in you being productive, like capitalistically productive, and we in an individualistic sort of striving
Yeah.
Western society. Yarlin and I currently are in the United States, in very much entrenched
Yeah.
in that,
Mm.
and in those spaces, it behooves other structures that you would believe that self-care and wellness are laziness.
Yeah.
I think it's also really important to recognize that self-care originally was a mechanism by which people would survive things like marginalization and trauma, racism,
Yeah.
sexism. This comes out of a need to survive rather than some like extra fruity, fluffy thing. I
Mhm.
think that's what many folks approach. Like when you talk to a counselor, like I think most people are saying like, oh, you're going to tell me to like light a candle and like take a bath or something.
Yeah.
Like there are these sort of like fluffy, fun things that we think of, or like even like companies try to like monetize self care. Like you just get the right face mask, like like that self care. And here's the thing: sometimes self care is a face mask. Like sometimes it is a bath. Sometimes it is the romanticized thing that people
Yeah.
talk about, and sometimes it's not. Like sometimes self care is like leaning back in your desk chair for 10 minutes and staring at the ceiling. Sometimes,
I feel that.
yeah,
Going out for a
sometimes
walk or something.
walking around your office building for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Sometimes self-care is going grocery shopping. Like
Mhm.
self-care is a survival mechanism by which we see
Yeah.
the value of working and of finding meaning and of finding purpose and all of that great stuff, and a recognition that if that is our only way of operating, we will never last. Like
Yeah.
it is a way to have longevity. It's a way to find wellness in the long term. There are very concrete, scientific, neurological reasons why we need rest.
Yeah.
And to be able to destigmatize rest and almost help us to understand that we choose rest, that it's a thing that
We are
we
privileged to be able to do.
exactly,
Yeah.
and that there are circumstances and you might be listening to this and going, I don't have the resources to rest. I don't have the financial
Mm.
stability to
Yeah.
rest. And that's real. Like there are systemic barriers to rest and to
Yeah.
self-care. And so most of the time when I'm talking with clients about worthiness and self-care and self-compassion and love, and it's all around how do I help myself be on my own team? How do I help myself to do the things that I really want to do in my workspaces or in my family spaces or whatever, by learning how to quiet my mind and rest.
Yeah.
And, mindfulness is great for that, mindfulness meditation. And I would say even something as simple as like tracking your own thoughts or noticing them.
Yep.
There's acceptance and commitment therapy talks a lot about like thanking your brain for your thoughts. So if you're having a
Yeah.
lot of racing thoughts, just being like, oh, thank you, brain. You're working overtime. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
And to do it in a way, and the important part here is to do it in a way that's non-judgmental. That
Right.
we're not judging ourselves for having these racing thoughts. It's just we're noticing them and being kind to ourselves and being like, it's okay if you're feeling stressed out today.
Yeah, and kind of practicing that gratitude, that's something that I feel like helps
Oh
people
yeah,
connect a lot with that
gratitude journaling.
self-care and being gentler with yourself.
Mm.
And I have a thought that insidious voice in her mind is her mom, is Briar's mom, because
Mm.
it's sometimes I think she mentions that her mom was in an unhappy marriage with her and her
Mhm.
dad, and that her mom was just always doing something, always cleaning, and that was her way of escape. So I really thought sometimes we can even connect with kind of our past upbringings and things like that.
Mm.
So I feel like this book was a great discussion.
Good fun. Just good
Um,
fun. And even though it's a short book, it's less serious feeling than maybe some of our other books. It still has these really impactful themes. It's
yeah.
like it gives us a way to comprehend or consider these themes without it being absolutely soul crushing. like
Yeah.
you get to the end of Onyx Storm, and you're just like
What?
emotionally and mentally like a husk of your former self. And this
Yeah.
is like I think one of the great strengths of Katee Robert, and again, Katee Robert's not a sponsor. So like I don't have any monetary reason to I genuinely just enjoy her work. And
Yeah.
I think she does a great job of like she has these feel good stories that are like kinky and horny and fun and happily ever after.
Yeah.
And underneath that are themes where it's like I think she does a good job of representation where y- folks can see themselves reflected in the real life issues that they have
Yeah.
in regards to relationships and sex and sexuality. Also, just a friendly reminder that everything we talked about
Yep.
today
Mhm.
is for fun. It's our thoughts on the mental health space. This should not be used in lieu of professional help or counseling. If you feel like you were triggered at all today, we highly recommend that you seek out your supports or a professional healthcare provider
Yeah.
that's sort of care tailored to you. Um, yeah,
We'll
I think
see you
that's it.
next time then.
Bye.
Bye.